This Fed Gov Today program is sponsored by TrackVia. On this edition of Fed Gov Today, the key to reorg success at the Federal Acquisition Service.
A lot of this is communication. You can't over-communicate, you can't over-listen to what's happening, and then make adjustments and tweaks as you go.
Former GSA official Tom Howder on Fed Gov Today in just a moment. Federal programs are still running on spreadsheets, SharePoint, and systems built with old technology. That creates more work and slows things down. TrackVia Government is a workflow modernization platform that lets agencies and prime partners quickly digitize program delivery, field services, compliance reporting, and operations, delivering secure, audit-ready workflows without lengthy implementations. Modern, mobile, mission-ready. Learn more at trackvia.com/government. The General Services Administration will restructure the Federal Acquisition Service into 5 new portfolios. The agency says the reorg will support executive orders from President Trump on workforce optimization and procurement consolidation. Tom Howder's former deputy commissioner of the Federal Acquisition Service at GSA. Tom, welcome. Thanks for joining me today. Before we get into the nuts and bolts of the reorganization, what does this mean overall, and what do you think the message is that GSA is trying to send to people with this? Welcome.
Well, thank you for inviting me. What GSA is doing here is the culmination of a multi-year effort to really relook at how they approach the marketplace. And so when you look at the details, what they say is that completes the transition from an industry-based approach to a product-based approach. And so that's really what they're going after here. The biggest, most impactful takeaway from this is that it brings the multiple award schedules program from a stovepiped and separated set of organizations into one coherent program.
Why is it important to move from an industry-based approach to a product-based approach, as you just described it, Tom?
It's the stovepipes that were created by the original approach that they had. And so GSA has really gone through cycles. Probably 20 plus years ago, they had the multiple award schedules as part of a single program. That was back in the old Federal Supply Service days. That was before FAS even existed. So the pendulum has clearly swung back now, and they really want to approach MAS as a single program rather than breaking it up into different components managed by different parts of the Federal Acquisition Service.
You kind of alluded to what I was thinking about before you even answered the question, which is this a result of minor changes over time that have kind of accrued to the organization being the way that it is, or was there some organizational structure that was designed as kind of part of a big deal at some point in the past that now doesn't serve the organization or serve its customers or serve industry as well as it could today?
Well, I think you go all the way back to the creation of the Federal Acquisition Service there. And at the time, it made a lot of sense. That was the way that the market was really evolving. But it has changed a lot in the 20 or so years since FAS was stood up and created. And so GSA has really been looking at this for quite some time. So the first step that they took was about 2 or 3 years ago with the Framing FAS for the Future initiative. And that's where they de-regionalized. That really impacted primarily the assisted acquisition services, but some of the other parts of FAS as well. At that time, they really decided to punt on the multiple award schedules. They knew that they had to address it later, and this is what now addresses it.
It's later now, Tom.
It is later.
All right. 5 new portfolios, according to Michael Lynch. We have a link to the blog post that he wrote about it on the show page today at fedgovtoday.com. Office of Assisted Acquisition Services, which you already touched on, Office of Centralized Acquisition Services, Office of Acquisition Solutions Development, Office of Shared Services Delivery, and Office of Business Optimization. What lives under each of those that's different than the way it was built before, in your understanding, Tom?
So it really impacts each of the organizations differently. So I'll start with the Assisted Acquisition Services, which really is unchanged in this one. They were primarily impacted by the prior effort, the one that was called Framing FAS for the Future. But with the Assisted Acquisition Service, they do have a goal to greatly increase the size of that organization. And so what you're going to see there is a robust hiring spree as they try to bring in more business. But the processes and the procedures really aren't going to change that much as related to this reorganization. Things like the RFO and other activities certainly will have an impact. Centralize, that's the new organization that you've probably heard called OCAS before. That was stood up last September. And so that won't really be impacted by the reorg because that was already created prior to the reorg, just before it. Where the most impact is probably in that create bucket. That's where the multiple award schedules is being brought together. It's also brought together with the other IDVs, including the GWACs, including the MACs. So you're going to see Alliant moving into there. You're going to see Oasis moving into there. And of course, the schedules program all moving into that organization right there. So a huge impact with that one. Deliver. Deliver is the one that is really focusing on where the products and services directly hit the federal agency. So you're going to see things in there like fleet and city pairs and go.gov and SmartPay, as well as the requisition channel and property disposal and things like that. And then finally, optimize. That's really one that cuts across all of the FAST organization. That's where you're going to see things like their strategic planning and their internal support, what we used to call the integrator functions in the prior Federal Acquisition Service. But Francis, they also threw one more into there, if you look at the blog, and that's one that's called Transform. And Transform really is what was a staff office that reported directly to the commissioner that's looking at their systems environment as well as how they're going to be using AI and automation to really put in place solutions for the organization. Not real surprising that it's going there because Stephanie Schutt, who's the chief of staff, she was greatly involved in that organization as well. But you know what's missing that you don't see on here is the Technology Transformation Service, TTS, which is part of FAST, but is really outside of this effort.
What does that mean in your view for the future of TTS? Because people have been asking a lot of questions about that organization since last year when the new administration came in and really downsized it.
So TTS has really had an interesting placement in GSA throughout the years. At points in time, it's been its own independent service, equivalent with the Public Building Service and the Federal Acquisition Service. At other times, it's been within the FAST ecosystem. But even when it's been there, it really hasn't been fully integrated with the rest of FAST. And so you would often hear people in GSA talk about it as TTS and FAST, even though it was part of the same organization. So as per usual, GSA is really trying to figure out where to place it and how to look at it, whether it should be a separate service, whether it should be rolled under FAST, and they just continue to wrestle with that. I don't think TTS is going away. They perform a lot of valuable services. It's just a matter of them figuring out, well, where are they going to fit best?
So back to this structuring, the blog post, as you've described, includes 5 new portfolios, and we've gone through each of those. And you told me about the 6th one. This post says, a new office, Transform, was established to accelerate automation and implement artificial intelligence solutions. Do you think that will be structured differently than the other 5, which is the reason that it's kind of separated off and not included as one of these new portfolios? Or what is it different somehow in some way?
It's really more akin to the old integrator functions that they had in FAST, which extend across the entirety of the organization. So it's really an enabler function. So that's why it's being looked at a little bit differently. The interesting piece about it, though, is by specifically calling it out in the blog, they're elevating the importance of the organization. So it was already there, it was already doing things, and now they wanted to have increased visibility, especially when it comes to things like implementing artificial intelligence solutions.
Michael Lynch was very careful to call out in this post that to customer agencies and to the vendors that GSA works with, nothing will change. He writes, you won't experience any changes to GSA's signature programs for the customer agencies, including city pairs, fleet, multiple award schedule, the GWACs, go.gov, and OneGov. The OneGov one is interesting because OneGov strikes me as sufficiently new that I wouldn't expect to see any changes.
Agreed. So you wouldn't expect to see changes there anyway. But anytime that GSA or FAS does one of these reorganizations, the goal really is to not impact the end customers. They want to make things as transparent and easy as they can. And so it takes a great deal of planning to be able to do that. So the genesis of this reorg actually goes back for more than a year. We were working on it when I was still there a year ago with some of the basic same names, and they've tweaked it a little bit since then. But what they've done over the last year is meticulous planning to put this reorg into place. It takes a huge amount of paperwork as well as cultural changes and issues internally to make something to go like this to go smoothly with the customer base. But they don't want to impact anything on the customer base other than making it better and more efficient for them.
How would you recommend to Laura Stanton, who's now the acting FAS commissioner, that she gauge how successful this is over time, how well this is working? What are the markers that you would recommend that people look at?
Well, the good news is that Laura was very, very involved with the creation of this reorganization. She was the person who headed up the small team that came up with the idea more than a year ago. So this really is her branding on the Federal Acquisition Service. I don't know if she really needs any advice from me on it because she's very adept at what she's doing here. But the biggest one would be listening to the customers, listening to industry, see how they're reacting to it, listening to your workforce and see how efficiently things are being put in place. So a lot of this is communication. You can't over communicate, you can't over listen to what's happening, and then make adjustments and tweaks as you go.
Tom, it's always great to talk to you. I really appreciate your insight. Thanks for joining me today.
Well, thank you. Really appreciate you inviting me.
You can read more about the FAS reorg on today's show page at fedgovtoday.com. 4 components make up a transformation that's underway at the Defense Logistics Agency. The leader of DLA lists those 4 as data, divesting legacy services, mission reassessment, and an infrastructure footprint review. Lieutenant General Mark Simmerly, the director of DLA, will tell you about the transformation on this week's Fed Gov Today TV. The new show debuts at 10 a.m. this Sunday morning on ABC 7 in Washington and on YouTube. It's on a number of times all weekend long on the American Forces Network. If you missed the debut, you can watch on demand on the Fed Gov Today YouTube channel and on fedgovtoday.com. The next Fed Gov Today podcast is coming Tuesday. I'm Francis Rose. I'll talk to you then. Thanks for listening.